Yeah, a little bit different outlook today. Gray and rainy, but that's good also. Well, yesterday it started to snow actually, so it was complete turnover in just a couple of hours. It was just that ice cold wind and the frost that just turned over here. So if people got some frozen hearts, I don't know, but it was a bit chilly. Anyway, the story for today was I got some flashbacks to when I found a rather unknown video, Julia Child, when she visited Norway in about 91. She went to the Norwegian broadcast and made a program there with Ingrid Espelid Hovig, Fjernsynskjøkkenet. That video that they two made is on NRK web page under 91, and it's the classic Norwegian things, the salmon, strawberries cream, etc. And she tells about when she was in the diplomatic service with her husband 2 years before she went to France, and they were posted there, and where she attended Le Cordon Bleu, the famous cooking school. But it was actually here in Norway that she started to cook because between work shifts and all that, the bored diplomat wife, instead of finding up all kinds of trouble, she wanted to learn to do something, and that was she did after the years of action that she had during the war. It was back to dullness. People just say that she was in archives and that, but she went through basic training with the likes of Fairbairn, Applegate, and the others. And you could really see that in how she handled a knife. That wasn't just the famous old butcher knife or cook knife she had experience with. That was the smatchet and the FS knife and Colt 45 also, because no matter what your position after basic service said, basic training, you had to go through it to be qualified, because it was a unit that was you never knew what would happen where you were posted to. Like if you were in war, peaceful, so-called neutral Sweden or Switzerland, and you suddenly had some dudes following after you, and in the midst of the night, some of the more peaceful and neutral cities and countries were actually just filled with spies and rare rivals and all that. Like Portugal, there were a whole lot. Spain, not to mention there. Sweden and Switzerland, and a whole lot else. And in countries that was occupied by one army, but you were from a country that was neutral to them, and that is one thing. So until December 7th, 1941, for the US ones that were posted here and there, even though the OSS wasn't officially established then, they had their precursor to it, so it was around. Anyway, back to the flashback I got. It was to in the program that she made for the American TV. It was he was up in Lom, in Gudbrandsdalen, very fine tourist area, very fine up in the mountains, clean rivers and all the thing, crisp, bright air. She visited the old Lomstav Kirke, one of the old wooden churches And I was there on a school trip once, and we visited it, and it was very beautiful inside. A lot of the old battle flags from the Norwegian armies through the centuries, 1600s, 1700s, the 1800s, and so on. Old regiments now disbanded for long, and it's people dust in the graveyards or lost in the fields and so on. And that was part as a school trip when I went to the forestry school, wilderness tourism line. We had these two teachers, a man and a woman. They were very into deep ecology, like why are people part of nature when we just should be looking at nature and not partake much in nature, just be like a traditional visitor or hiker, and not take out things of the nature if we don't bring it with us into nature, and all kinds of other stuff. It's um, it's a lot of this. It was later what I found out elsewhere that this was just the basis of ARA ideology, that they were secretly supportive of that, whilst they were claiming to be hunters and fisher and all that. And that was a stupid thing to be on a school where guns, girls, and dogs were a normal part of the boys and the girls. Well, for the girls, it were boys mixed in there. Almost every breath they take, like part of the soul. Like one dude that was arrested many years here and in a huge case in Oslo, and well, it's a long. That one is a long side, but he said, "Weapons is like air to us." He said then, and that quote you could just frame that on a plank and put it up on the wall of that school together with girls and dogs, and you would be having the whole thing. Anyway, the school's curriculum was based around projects, like you were working 2 weeks with that thing or a month. And then you went to do that thing, you took the notes and you wrote a report, and that report was graded, and you left outside, and you did the next thing. This one was the glacier walking. It was part of going up to Jotunheimen for a week, and we went through all that climbing things and the mountain iron use and the climbing peaks and all that, and we were going up on the mountain there, and we had a few stopovers. First we were at some of the areas that I knew a bit about from the war, what happened in war, like Dokka, on the way up, where the Germans had their actual first combat jump of the Fallskjermjäger, the paratroopers in whole Norway. That was up there. If they landed, they would breach and split the Allied forces that were coming from several directions. They would be landed in the midst of where they would be crossing to and from. Genius decision and action. Then we went up to Kvam and other places where there were remnants of the Skottetoget, as it was called, or the Scottish train. That was in 1618. Well, that's another video in its own. When the Scottish mercenaries that was going to Sweden to link up with the Swedish forces was stopped by the Norwegian troops, and well, it could have been larger force, but the king of Scotland, he was married to the sister of the Norwegian Danish queen, and this English Scottish king was King James, and he had enough of fighting women in his family. Remember his aunts? Well, so he stopped that, but that was too late. And 1,400 men sailed, but that's another part. We came up there, and both the teachers was with us, and the guy suddenly introduced our guide. It was a pretty athletic, dark-haired girl in her late 20s, perhaps early 30s, sportive, elegant, adrenaline, just spring heel type, like flying over the hills and over the mountains. And we were just looking a bit at each other. What? And we started to note the lady teachers, they start to get a bit stiff, a little bit gritty. But she was trying to hold up something, a facade of some kind. And as we all went up to the area where we were pitching camps and setting up the tents, we noticed in the midst of that, the teacher and that guide girl was putting up their tents 100 meters away from where we were, and just sharing one tent. Well, ordinarily, that wouldn't have been something to worry much about, but that guy was 33, 34, married, and with 2 children. And they were living on school site. Notice, many of the teachers had their houses around the school since they were going to be based there for years or decades. For some of them, they bought the houses around the school, so suddenly when the school inspector for the night watch guy for the week was just living 50 or 100 yards away from the school, he could just be taking a little evening walk and just have a little look to see that there wasn't any kinds of trouble, and he could be turning up unexpectedly and from different angles due to the doors. So the first day commenced as natural with all the morning stuff, and then we started off. And as the day progressed, people were getting tired, and we were up in the hills there, and I had never been in that kind of mountain before, so for me it was just like, it's going to be very interesting, and we haven't gotten to the fully point yet. And as the week progressed, those two got more and more tightly connected, and the other teacher, she got more gritty and tougher, and I had a fall on the mountain again, and me and a couple of 4 or 5 others, we were also exhausted, worn down, so we were just doing things around the base camp and such. And then some of the guys started to come, and some of the adrenaline guys, they were just worn out, exhausted. What the heck's going on up there? And it was just different speeds that they went through, and that teacher and the girl, they were just coming after everybody else and chit-chatting, and somebody asked the other lady, "Hey, when is he coming back?" And she said, "I don't care, he's coming down on his own." It was like hearing a gritty, exhausted Arlie Ermy type of voice. Or like, ooh, that's something. This ain't normal. And And the next day, three of the so-called stalkers, three of the young guys, very, they were very adaptable. They could move very swift and silently. There were three guys, but sometimes there were like one. And they just came chit-chatting like, yeah, they were sitting holding around each other, and they were he kissed her on the cheek and she kissed him back, and then they just started to kiss each other on the mouth, and like, then you just, heck the hell. I just started. Those two have been sitting on the way down a bit away, and the guys had just due to terrain gone around them about 100 yards, so they and a little bit higher up, so they could see how they came when they saw them when they came down at the higher elevation. And then the gossiping started, and the small and one of the guys who had been dealing a lot into the species of woman, he identified it. My God, that guy has been unfaithful. And he sent a message to our other teacher who was down at school, and on natural reasons, he did not have time to go up to the mountain tour because he had he had all business else to do. And then the message came to him at the best or the worst type of point during lunch break, in the midst of teachers' lounge, and you had all these tough, hard, gritty guys that had been spent thousands of hours in the forest, all kinds of weathers and situations, decades, and he just started to giggle like a little girl and laugh, and he just passed the phone around to a couple of guys, and he said, "I knew it, that son of a bitch," and all that, and like, man, this is going to be hot over the weekend. Yeah. And everybody's started to become all right, we have to keep this for ourselves. And they say, Jack, you were in that kind of unit when you did your service, so I know you can keep a silence, said the three young guys, because yeah. I'm like, oh my lord. I felt a bit like Higgins in the Magnum PI series, the old one, the good one, the natural one. I'm like, oh my god. I didn't have a Susan Apollo around me then, but I just said, carry on, and we take it when we get back in there. And so did a couple of the older guys that we had in class also. They had been a couple of divorces and all that, and you see life on the road, and it's going to be fiery. And we went down there and back down a few days later, and tired, exhausted, and down to school and hang up all our clothing items and all that. And after we done that, I was just going to be down there on school for the weekend because I thought I would be drenched enough and just be on my own for a couple of days and just hit the sack, calm weekends. And I went in there after I put all the gear to separate for all the stuff, and went into the pantries and grabbed some food and hit the sack like comatose. It was like, oh, if you seen Sergeant Bilko after his hard training day, it was not that far off. And morning started on Monday. We were just starting to get up there, and somehow that had gotten to the principal. And principal wanted a meeting because he said, "Hey, what's this about? Keeping the ethic rules, eh?" And That the guy, he was a very, he had a lot of humor, a lot of standing, but he was a old, steel-haired, steel-wired guy. That if you were messing up with him or messing with him, oh boy, you would have a. That would be like if Arlie Ermy had been a principal. Keep your cards clear. Um, and we just saw him sitting in the office there and getting the little talk at him. And the next day when we were doing some mountain climbing, he just wanted to address it that it was our fault that he now was going through the divorce, separation and divorce. If we had not said anything, this would not have been happening. And people were just like, how many level points of respect do you think that you actually have left, mister? But people didn't say. We were just like, okay. And then we found out why the reason why that lady had been so jealous. They had been bit dating on before all that, and he and that guide girl had met each other on a mountain preparation course that summer, how to get to know the glaciers and all that. So they had hooked up already there whilst he was hooking up with the other teacher. And that teacher, the lady that he was hooking up with, she was 47, 48. The other girl, she was perhaps 30, 31. He was 34, 35, so you can just say how it was. Back was his cute wife with the almost toddlers, little two small children, 2 or 3 years old, and it was sort of like, how the hell is this possible? And what the hell do you think the lack of consequences is? And well, they got separated and moved away, but a while back he got another kid with his wife, so nobody knows what's happening. But instead of fulfilling the whole semester, he left at Christmas, and we had almost nothing to do with him for the remainder of those months. So it was others that took over, and he had been quite the bully the year before to the class that was before us, and people at that class just said, "Oh, that's good. It's something that should have been happening." Last year, it had been so many people that had quit that class that they almost shut the whole course down. So we were the ones that kept that class up, and that led to further development into the trade the following years. And it was quite interesting and funny, but also much strange there. So, well, that's just that for today. So.